Joining us now for more on the impact to consumers is Seth Schackner, Managing Director at Strat America. He's worked with some of the biggest companies in entertainment. So let's start with moviegoers, those who love to go through the theater. What does it mean for them, especially since Netflix hasn't always been supportive of a theater-first release?
Good to be here, Stephanie. It's a big question mark, honestly. Look, theatrical windows, theaters, have been under, a huge amount of pressure for the last half decade. So this is not a new story. There are already, so many incentives for consumers to just stay home and stay on the couch right now. And, Netflix is an environment that has traditionally been about its app, about its community, and serving them and retaining them, engaging them. And so they have definitely not been terribly supportive of putting their pictures in theaters. They do so for short little windows, typically to get them qualified for Oscar consideration. So I personally think you'll probably see more pressure on what we call the window, the amount of time before something gets released theatrically when it becomes available to rent or on premium, like on-demand windows. So it could mean less. Netflix is very much pledging to release pictures in theaters, but I think that's a real question mark around this one.
So the other, the big question a lot of people who have streaming services have to ask is this going to cost us any more with these two major companies combining? Or, are we going to get a bit of a deal not needing to pay for two separate subscription services?
Firstly, look, I'm going to state the obvious. This is really early to tell right now. It's probably 18 months away from some kind of regulatory approval. It may not get approved. It's possible that Mr. Ellison and Paramount will try and overbid and take this whole thing apart. I would not rule that out. But, I think if you really want to push this out a couple of years and ask what would happen, it's possible you'll see things like bundles. Disney's done a lot of this with Disney Plus and the ESPN app and Hulu. And that actually, to me, it's kind of inverse to what you're saying, that usually you see better prices with bundles and they're usually better deals for consumers. But it's a little bit early to talk about this, even talking about putting the HBO Max app, if you will, into Netflix. There may be some reason that these things sit separately for right now. So, a couple of years out, you'll be able to look at this. I think if they do succeed in it, then yeah, it would probably make sense for them to have most of that content in a place that is kind of easy for consumers to discover. But way too early, really, right now to say.
So do you think we're at a 12-month, 18-month time frame before we really have any of these major answers for us as consumers?
Yeah, probably. Maybe even more for the consumer side. I think the regulatory and merger stuff is probably what that window that you just suggested is all about. And then maybe after that, you'll start to see organizational stuff, which I think you can expect, which might be combinations of certain parts of the companies. And then, from after that, maybe you'll start seeing product iterations along the lines of what everyone's kind of worrying about today. So I think we're a ways off from seeing that stuff. The real thing out here that people, I think, in the Hollywood community, creative and business, are, wincing at a little bit is that looks like we're going to lose one of our most storied, studios in the town here that's going into big tech. And this is not a small studio. It's over 100 years old, and it's a big piece of American cultural history, and it's going into a very different technology streamer. They're going to be really different places culturally for employees, I would imagine, as well. And I think people are thinking about that and thinking about, what happens to the pool of talent if they're going to have less places to find work and get signed up for. So there's some pretty tough considerations even before you get to what the apps are going to look like on the consumer side, but it's a good question.
Well, you mentioned the Paramount Skydance merger. Is that where this industry is going, that there are just going to be, each giant company is going to continue to gobble another giant company? I think about, when streaming started, the whole point was that it's cheaper than cable. Well, now we have so many streaming services that it sometimes does not feel like it is cheaper. So are we going to see more of these, one giant company buying another giant company?
I think the trend has been, the thinking has been here for all, is that you kind of got to get to scale and you got to get bigger and build that big mountain to be able to compete with Netflix, with Prime, and with Disney, and with this one that may be going into one of them right now. So probably, yes, you're going to see more combinations of those things. I don't necessarily think it's going to mean prices are going to be higher for consumers, because I tend to look at they'll be more competitive, and you might actually get better deals out of bundles for it. But yeah, I do think you probably can expect to see more of this activity going forward. And I think, you know, the town's really changed. I mean, it is ultimately the good news, good for consumers, because they have lots of consumer choices. I don't know about you, but even me now, like, I used to love going to independent art houses to see pictures, and now I can kind of rent it at home and have a pizza and just relax. And so, you know, there's more choices for you as a consumer now, and I think there will be going forward. But yeah, you're probably going to see less of the big guys. They'll be consolidated for sure.
I'm definitely a fan of the pizza, movie, drink at home. Going to the theater, though, when it's a really big one that you really need that big screen to truly enjoy it. Seth Jackner, Managing Director at Strat America. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening. We appreciate it.
Great to be here.